I've got the right audience and they're in the right room. And I can sell them the thing now because it's not like a pricing issue anymore. It's just having the right people in the room.
All right, today's guest is someone I can personally vouch for because she just helped me completely rewrite my homepage, and I'm obsessed with how it turned out. Jen Liddy is a brand messaging strategist for experienced experts. And here's what I love what she does. She works specifically with people who already have their credentials, the client results, and the expertise, but their marketing still isn't bringing the right people in. Does that sound familiar to you? But Jen's whole approach is about helping you finally say what you do in words that get heard, referred, and hired, and make sure that it actually sounds like you. Not like a template, not like AI, not like every other coach in the internet. She has a background as an English teacher and a college professor, which means she can see exactly what is not working on your copy, explain it why, and show you how to fix it without the red pen. And before we jump in, she's giving our listeners $100 off her Message Fix RX, which is her full messaging diagnostic. This is where she goes deep on everything across your business, figures out what's off, and gives you a custom roadmap before and after example so you know exactly what to change. You can use the code Nata, N-A-T-A, at checkout and grab that discount. We're going to have all the information in the show notes for you. Let's dive in. All right, welcome back to the Accidental SEO podcast. Today we have a super fun episode. I can't wait to have these conversations. I have my friend Jen Liddy with me. I'm going to tell you how we met because I think it's an interesting story. We've been around each other for about 1.5 years now. We spent a little bit of time together in Mexico during a retreat to get to know Jen a little bit more. But then it wasn't until March of this year where we took the chance and decided to be roommates for a few days. Because you never know when you decide to, be a roommate with somebody. And I was teaching a workshop in Denver, and oh my gosh, it was so much fun. We had so many amazing conversations about life and about business. I ended up hiring Jen to redo the copy for the homepage of my website, and was able to experience her brilliance. And I'm so excited to share everything that she knows with you guys. So welcome, Jen.
I love that you say I redid your homepage website, homepage copy, which I actually did not do because you did it. So I love that, you're like, oh, giving me credit for something that you actually did based on me just showing you a couple of things. You were able to be like, oh, now I see everything that I need to do. And you were such fast, of course, because you're a fast action person. You went right into using what I gave you as feedback. And then you're just like, whoosh, 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 whoosh. You're like, here's my new website. I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect and beautiful and really up levels you to what you wanted to express. And so I just want everybody to know I did not, but Nata did. And all I did was tell her, this is what's going on and can you see it now?
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to 50-50 share the credit for what's on my website. I could not have written anything without you guiding me. And yes, I did put together
a beautiful new homepage.
The copy based on your feedback. So I couldn't have done it without you and vice versa. So we're going to split the credit, guys. And just know that when you actually do things following expert advice, it's amazing. And actually, it happens.
Yes, I can't wait to get into this conversation today, especially because your people who listen to this podcast are such experts in their thing. So it's always fun to talk to experts because they're the people who know the most, but also can't see what's in their way.
Absolutely. So that's going to be my first question for you. But before we go into there, because it's amazing, just share a little bit more about you and what you do today and how did you get to, to serve people in this way? Because I know there's stories behind it.
Yes. Well, I'll start by the title that I am, which is basically a brand messaging strategist. But the way that I got here was, if I look back 30 years when I became a high school teacher, I was grading papers. I would be grading, say I taught, one year I taught 5 classes of all 9th graders. So if I assigned a Romeo and Juliet essay, I was grading 5 classes worth of Romeo and Juliet essays, which of course now makes me want to shoot myself in the face, but that's what my life was like back then. It got me really good at this skill that I never thought of as a business skill, but it actually is. I can read a lot of people's work, understand what they're trying to say, laser in on, oh, they're not actually saying it, give them feedback that doesn't hurt their feelings, and then show them how to fix it so the next essay would be better. So imagine doing that over and over and over again for 15 years. So the number of essays that I have read and given feedback on. And when I wound up leaving education, it had started with all of these little death by a thousand cuts moments where the one that stands out was like I would write a lot of comments. I would spend a lot of time giving my kids feedback. I would use a rubric so it was very fair. One kid, I remember he left my classroom and and this used to happen a lot, but like one day it really got me. He crumpled up the paper that I had spent at least 25 minutes analyzing and giving him feedback that would be helpful. And he crumpled it up and threw it in the garbage on his way out. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Because I had this epiphany that teenagers, while I was trying to get them to share their brilliance better, they don't care about that. But you know who does care about that is entrepreneurs and experts and thought leaders. And so that's what I do now is I work with people who actually want to be in the room and want to see what's not working and why. And my whole thing is like, I diagnose what's the trouble with your communication and what's the trouble with your messaging? Where are the holes? Where are the gaps? And what can you do about it? Like, I'm not here to just put a laser pointer on it or take my red pen out, but that's the lane that I'm in now. And it's funny when I kind of trace it back to those moments of grading those, shitty Julius Caesar essays, all of those research papers that I had to assign. I'm like, oh, it's gotten me to this moment in a very unique way.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see how, even though it was repetitive, it created probably such a muscle for you to be able to help people now. So we're always grateful for some transferable skills that we can use.
Well, when you can identify those transferable skills, it's very empowering because I think for so long, I'm curious if you and your listeners also have experiences like when you're good at a thing and you just have this natural way of being good at it, like sure, you've honed it over the years, but like sometimes you doubt it. Sometimes you're like, well, maybe it's just natural. Like it's not that it's easy for me, or maybe I don't really value it enough because it's so easy for me. I think that again is a trap that experts get caught into, like because it's easy, we don't value it. Or, like on your last episode, you were talking about the client who like 7x, he did like his next client paid 7 times more. And it's like, we just get it's like the frog in the boiling water thing. We just don't even see it anymore. We don't value it anymore. But when I traced it back to the grading all those papers, I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And it felt so much more valuable to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a client, we were doing a 2-day retreat last week. And we were talking about just asking for sponsorships and how I got sponsorships for my last summit and how I did it. And she's like, you need to talk about that. Like people don't do it. I'm like, what do you mean? Like that's common sense.
I remember watching do this in Denver. You're like having conversations, like you're sending out emails to big deal companies and people. And she's just listener, she's just asking. She's just doing it.
Yeah,
like, that is special.
I'm just asking for what I want. And she's like, but people don't do that. I'm like, why not? That's like, well, if you want something, you ask for it. Like,
it was such a good lesson to watch you. Just ask.
Yeah. So I know you work with specifically with more experienced experts, not so much beginners. And what is about that stage that makes messaging actually harder and not easier?
Yeah, it's kind of like what I've been alluding to. So some of the people that I work with are newer to business, but everybody I work with is very seasoned in their industry. So even if they're like, my coaching business or my consulting business is a year and a half old, but I've been in it for like 15, 20, 25 years, we all have that, like the curse of the expert where, like I was saying, the things that just come naturally to you, or I also like to think of us as snowballs. Like we've been like going down the mountain and gathering up all of the dust and the particles and the stones and the dirt and all of it like is embedded in us, but we can't, we just like, well, we're just a snowball. Like that's it. Like you're a snowball with all these facets and nuances and subtleties that you've gathered over the years. We just can't see it anymore. The phrase is curse of the expert, but we all experience it, especially when people at this stage, they've been practicing for so long and they're faster at it. They can get their clients' results faster. The other thing that happens for those people that's interesting is they kind of forget what it's like to be at the beginning stage for their clients again. So they forget to start talking about that. So that's another problem for them, is not only they just take their expertise for granted, but they also forget like how to speak so specifically to those where they're meeting their clients. It's not like beginning pain point, but where their clients are. And they just kind of gloss over things and make them more general and generic. And then the third thing that I see is when people have all of this stuff in their snowball, it gets very hard to talk about what you do and to distill it down. So to say you're a business coach is like doing you such a great disservice. But we do need something like that to say to people so they can file it away in their head and be like, oh, I'm going to put you in this category so I know kind of what you do. And so people who are in that middle stage or that growth stage, they have a really hard time talking about their expertise in that way.
Yeah. I mean, I went through it. I'm sure a lot of people are going through it right now. I remember being in healthcare, it gets drilled into our heads to change the language when you're speaking to your patient versus when you're speaking to a colleague, right? So we have to know how to go back and forth. And obviously, you show your expertise and all your knowledge when you're talking to a colleague, or maybe you're presenting at a conference. But you need to be able to turn around and explain to that patient in front of you who did not have medical training, who does not have a doctorate degree, what is going on with their body and how you're going to fix it, right? So that's basically what you help people do, is help them understand how to speak to that specific client. And yes, it's definitely the curse of the expert not knowing sometimes how to translate things. And people have this feeling of like, well, I don't want to, like you said, water down, or I don't want to take away the value of what I do by making it simple, but that's not what you're doing.
No,
right?
It's like you have to be able to express the facets and the subtleties. You used a really good word. You said translate. And some people do think like, oh, I have to dumb it down for my audience. Your audience is not like, they don't need it dumbed down. They need it clarified. And there's a difference. And you use the word translate, and it's very hard for us to translate our expertise, especially when we have a lot of different people who are like multi-potentialites or highly creative, or they've got their brain works in two different ways, analytical and intuitive, for example. They really have a hard time expressing that, but there is always a way to differentiate what you've done. It's just extremely hard to do it for yourself. It's also extremely hard to do it using AI as your personal pinball machine, because it just like pings you around and it doesn't actually, it can't quite see all of those nuances and subtleties and then draw them out of you and then create something that's really, truly new for you.
When somebody comes to you and say, my messaging is off, first of all, good that they even recognize, because I feel like a lot of people don't even get to that point. What do you find underneath as most of the time the reasons behind that like disconnect?
I think your listeners will really identify with this because you talk about identity so much, and they've gotten to a different place usually in their personal identity, definitely in their business identity, often in how they work with people and their offers. So when they're bumping up against something that's not working for for the business that you run, you talk about like delegation and systems and, trusting your people and training them. And for my people, when they bump up against that stuff, they go like, I need a new offer. I need some different pricing. I need a total rebrand. I need to spend $15,000 on an overhaul of rebrand. And it's actually, some people come to me and they're like, I need a messaging overhaul. I need a new playbook. I need a new messaging playbook. And I almost always can say, it's actually not an overhaul. You need some tweaking, and here's where you need the tweaking. And that is like, for somebody who's been doing this for so long, that's a gift to them, because they already have so much on their plate. So when I look underneath, it's generally like your identity for your business. Your identity for your business is ahead of where your messaging is. Your messaging hasn't caught up.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to talk about ourselves and help people understand what we do. It sounds simple, and everybody's like, well, here's my one-liner and here's my elevator speech. But that is not what people need. There's so much more that goes into a good message and helping people understand what you do, and that's what you're really good at extracting that from us because it's easy. Like, even if you try to use AI, you're just going to sit in front of the computer and that cursor is going to be blinking because you don't even know where to start, right? So understanding how to communicate, what do you need to communicate? What is important to your client? What do they even want to know? What is the problem that they need solved?
And that, I think, is a thing that people have done at the start of their business. They've been told, like, you need to interview your clients or your audience and get the voice of customer. All of that is very important, but people like to be one and done with it. They're like, oh, I did that 5 years ago. I did that 7 years ago. Or even if I did that 3 years ago or even 1 year ago, they're like, I don't freaking want to do that again. I don't blame them. It feels too foundational. It feels boring. It feels beginner. And your people are not beginners. They're not intimidated. They know business inside and out, but they also know their audience has changed and they don't really want to go back and do this foundational work again. The other thing I find when I look underneath is the messaging is there's two things. It's usually too generic. It's using words that maybe they used a couple of years ago, but they don't use anymore because they're savvier. They're further along in their journey. And they're also they're less trusting, like they've been burned. So they're like, they need a different kind of messaging. So that's on the voice of customer side. But I always find that there's a thing that my diagnostic clients want to say because they've like really honed in on like what the real problem is and what their audience really needs to hear. But they're kind of holding themselves back from actually saying it. When I do this diagnostic with them, one of the things I show them is like, this is what you're hinting at, but your audience isn't getting it. You need to come out and say it, and let's find a way for you to say it in a way that feels good. You don't have to be hurtful to people to tell them the truth and to tell them all the things that you've learned in honing your own skills as an expert. So it's kind of a dual thing. Like, yes, what does your audience need to hear now? But also, what do you want to say now? Who you are now and who they are now.
This episode is brought to you by CEO Friend, and I want to take a second to tell you why I said yes to this one. Most of the founders I work with are sharp, successful, and still making the biggest calls without anyone who truly sees the whole business at once. Your accountant sees the numbers. Your coach sees the mindset, some of the strategy. Your mentor is working from their own experience. Nobody's sitting at the intersection of all of it, challenging your thinking and telling you what to do next. This is what a real advisory board does. Most founders at our stage cannot justify the cost. CEO Friend is an AI-powered advisory board built specifically for the founder-led businesses. Finance, marketing, strategy, operations, all personalized to your business and on demand. I vetted this one before saying yes, and I think it's a strong fit for where a lot of you are right now. Try it free for the first month. You can use the code ACEO trial, that's ACEO TRIAL, at ceofriend.ai/offer. The link is in the show notes for you. Go check it out. You talk a lot about messaging that sounds like unmistakably you, like it's really you. What did it look like when someone's message doesn't really sound like them, and why does that actually happen?
Well, first, if you come from an industry, say you're a lawyer, say you're an academic, say you're in medicine, there's things you're not allowed to say. There's things that mean that you're being professional. So then you're like, I don't want to be in this industry anymore. I'm going to go hang out my shingle and become a consultant or a coach or whatever. And now you have to learn how to have a personal way of speaking, have a brand way of speaking. When you were in industry, that was all taken care of for you. Like as a teacher, I knew what I could and couldn't say to my kids. I knew what the expectations were. And then when you get to have your own business, you're like, well, okay, if I speak in my old way, that makes me sound too flat or too corporate or too boring or too buttoned up. And I sound like every other version of me out there. So that's one thing that happens. And another thing is sometimes people overcorrect for that. And when they're a CEO, they become the CEO of their business. They're like, I need to let everybody in on everything. And that feels depleting for a lot of people. People, like whether you're an introvert or you're private or you're shy or whatever it is for you, your audience doesn't need everything from you. They just need, to understand that you have a unique perspective. You have a unique way of saying things. That has always been true. It has never become more important now with AI because your people are reading your stuff. And if it feels flat, if you're using sentences in constructions that you don't normally say, if you're using words that feel like every single other person in your industry is saying them, your audience is wondering, did AI write this? And I'm not anti-AI. I'm anti handing over our brilliance and our way of speaking and the way we want to show up and our personality to a robot and flattening all of that out. So you kind of drift to the middle is what happens. And you just don't, you just like, it's like the invisibility cloak that you're wearing because you just have not found a way to find the way that you want to express yourself that's not overly personal and not overly, I'll use the word professional, but there is a way to be a personal brand and be professional while always showing up for yourself. Almost always it comes down to the details.
Absolutely. And I think there's also that when people get overwhelmed, sometimes they just go and look for what is somebody else that is being successful saying. And then you start talking like they're talking and you completely lose yourself in your essence because you're just using what has worked for somebody else. And guess what happens? It's not going to work for you.
I know. Well, I always tell this story because it's such a great illustrative story. I had a client who I was literally just working on her brand voice with her. She was like, I used to be a psychiatrist and now I'm a mom of a small child. And I don't know what's in between those two with my coach brand voice. And so she didn't know how to like not sound like a doctor or not sound like a mom. And she had come to me and she's like, I really like these people in our space. And she named people that we all know. And she wanted to have a brand voice like them. Her way of being in the world is very grounded, very soft, very kind. And the people that she was naming were like show up on a stage, have a spotlight on them, be cheerleadery. They're a little extra. They're a little loud. And I said, it's not that you can't be that. It's just not who you actually are. So I can teach you how to have that brand voice, but it's going to be unsustainable for you. The difference between an audience member falling in love with that version of your brand voice and then meeting you on an actual call, it's a huge disconnect and it only develops more distrust. So we have to find your brand voice and get you really comfortable with that. Those people who are, they're not even aspirational to you. They're just completely different types of brand voices and both can exist and both can be successful.
So we talked about in the beginning how you helped me with my website. What do you actually look for when you're auditing someone's copy? Tell us a little bit about what are the things that you're like, that.
There's kind of a twofold process. And actually, I didn't actually get the second part of it with my students. I had the opportunity with my students to read their papers, right? But every single day in class, I had the opportunity to get to know them as humans, how they were interacting with me, each other, how they showed up as people. So sometimes in their paper, what I was seeing from who they were in real life, there was a huge disconnect. Like, I know you can think better than this. I know you can write like more clearly than this. I know you have a higher level of thinking than this. So I am actually doing the same thing with my clients now. I'll take a look at like 5 major pieces of content across their business and analyze their brand message. What I'm looking for at that point is honestly consistency. Like what is being conveyed? And then what are they trying to convey? I'm basically like sniffing around and I'm reading deeply and I'm looking for patterns. And that's the way my brain works. I'm built for that. And then the second half of it is I get to do a deep dive interview with this person where then I've already got a sense of who they are. And then I get to ask pointed questions about, who are you as a brand? What are your goals? Who is your audience? What are you trying to say? So then I get to dig in a little bit deeper. And that's where everything reveals itself, where I'm like, oh, you said you wanted this, and then this is what you actually have. And this is how we bridge those two things. These are the things that your audience is experiencing when they're reading your stuff. That's always a big aha for people. They're like, oh, I never really thought about my audience was receiving it this way. And then here's how to change it. And that's what the report that I build gives them. So if you're trying to do this for yourself, it's hard, but it's not impossible. That's what I want to like, I'm not here to just say like, you need an outside set of eyes. Yes, that can be helpful. But it's when I'm saying to you, where were you 3 years ago in your business? Go look at your website, go look at your sales pages, go look at your offers, go look at the emails you write. I bet you're still writing from the version of you that you were 3 years ago, and also the version of your audience who they were 3 years ago. And you've probably been like, I got to make this new offer and I got to have better pricing. And maybe I need, a new website or a new logo or whatever bullshit we tell ourselves. But there's just a disconnect between who you were then and what you were saying, what they needed to hear, and who you are now, what they need to hear now, and what you really want to say now. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm just going in and like lasering in. It's my version of like, where's your thesis statement? How does this prove your thesis statement? Which is what I used to do when I was an English teacher.
Yeah, and that's your message and diagnostic offer, correct?
Yes, it's called the Message Fix RX. And that's pretty much all I do these days is I just go in, do that and I get out. But it's the same patterns all the patterns that I'm talking about here. That's what people can start to look for in themselves to find their own gaps.
Yeah, and you didn't say that, but I will say it. I don't think this is the kind of work that you should do on your own. I think there is plenty of work for you to do on your own, but I think we're so close to our business that we don't sometimes, most of the time, I'm gonna go ahead and say we don't have the capacity to see all the things that we need to see on our own. We just don't. We're blinded to our own problems. We're trying to read the label from the inside of the bottle, and we just can't do that. This is the kind of work that you need somebody else to do with you, because the right person is going to ask the right questions, push the right buttons, and really help pull that information out of you. Because let's be honest, if you could do it by yourself, you would have done it by now. I'm going to say it. You might not, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. You should not do this on your own.
Well, I had my own epiphany in the spring of 2024. I was struggling with this myself. So the messaging person who's struggling with her own messaging, struggling with her own voice, the cobblers, children have no shoes, that thing. And I hired my mentor who taught me about brand voice. And he very gently and kindly, but directly pointed out that my brand voice was a teacher's brand voice. And I was hedging and he called it an underdog voice. I was always like kind of downplaying my expertise and my authority. That's what you do when you're a teacher, right? Like that's, you're not the sage on the stage. You're the person who is facilitating a room. And when I saw it, then I could not unsee it. It took me a while to pluck all of those hedging words out of my brand voice and step into my authority. And also the other habit I have that has been pointed out to me externally, because I can't see it myself, is a habit of saying the same thing in 3 different ways. Because when you have a classroom full of 27 different learners, you have to go on the standard deviation and say things 5 different ways. And so when I write an email, one of the things I know about myself is I tend to overstate a point. I probably have done it in this interview. That's my teacher. And so I actually have built something for myself where I check myself in Claude being like, where am I overstating the point? Where am I saying something 3 times? It's very hard to see it on your own. But now that you're aware of these things, you can start to look for them for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, we all have our own things that we do. I was working with somebody else, co-teaching something, and we were laughing at how differently we write our emails. My colleague was very wordy and explained things over and over. And I'm like short and sweet to the point, like, this is it. Because that's just how I think and how I consume information. And we are just biased to our own, stuff. So
yes. And we have the story that it needs to be this way.
Knowing that this, again, might be common sense, but why not point the things that we think is common sense? Because somebody might not be thinking about it. Does good messaging actually change in someone's business? Not just the copy itself, but the downstream effects of it. Let's give people a clear vision of what fixing your messaging actually does for your business.
It's such a good point, because until you have that strong, clear messaging where people are like, oh, this is for me. I'm leaning in. Yes, this is speaking. It's not just the copy. The copy is what, sells. It's the specific words. It's not the content. The content is like the thing you're putting out there, whether that's a YouTube video or whatever. But the message underneath it has to be consistent and clear so that people can lean in and identify that this is for me or not for me. And that includes the brand voice piece too. Like, I always use the example of like kind of that like hustle kind of mentality. If I get any whiff of that in anybody's messaging, I am gone. That is not my thing. Or say you're like, I'm not really into like spiritual or woo-woo stuff. If you get that in somebody's messaging, you should be gone. And we want that because we want people to like repel from us if they're not for us. So it kind of has the downstream effect of like, okay, I've got the right audience and they're in the right room and I can sell them the thing now because it's not like a pricing issue anymore. It's just having the right people in the room. So, like I don't really work with beginners because they know they need this, but they're really not interested in investing in it, or they think they can't. So they're going to bootstrap it themselves. So I don't speak to beginners anymore. It doesn't mean I can't work with beginners. I just want the right people in the room. And so do your people. It affects like, where are you going to put your time? If you think your major problem, and I alluded to this before, but if you think your major problem is like, my pictures are too old and they're not conveying what I want to convey, and you're going to be like, I'm going to spend $5,000 on a new photo shoot. But if you don't have the words that are matching those new pictures, it doesn't matter. And so it's like, where are you putting your money for all of the things that you think you need to have or buy, when some really boring, basic, foundational messaging work could change all of that? Maybe you don't need a website overhaul. Maybe you need to see why when people land on your website, like actually I just did I was working with a client the other day, her website, like it wasn't even optimized to get people to opt in immediately. And her header wasn't really speaking to what she does. And she had just had it up for so long. She's a very accomplished person, but she hadn't like put her eyes on her website in a long time. And so she was like, oh, maybe I need to, I don't know, start a podcast or start a YouTube channel, or like I'll start a new tactic, when actually maybe all you need is like the website that you're sending people to just work a little bit better. It's like the decluttering that we do, like, oh, I need to burn the whole house down because it's such a mess. What if you just started decluttering this drawer? It's boring, it's basic, but it can really free up a lot of space for whatever you need to do next.
Yeah, that is the secret. Absolutely. Well, I want to move on to our last surprise question. So I started doing this fun thing. I don't know if it's fun for you guys to just get, hit with a random question. But this question comes from a deck of cards called Tell Me More: Connection, Surprises, and Laughter. So I have no idea what's coming. I just picked the card on top and I don't read it before the podcast. So here's your question. If you could let go of something right now, no matter how big or small, what would it be?
Oh boy. I'm in a season of, my son has just come home from college after his first year of college. And so I've spent the last year, I wouldn't say like mourning, but like empty nesting is real hard. I have worried about him a lot. And if I could let go of even thinking he needs me to manage one teeny tiny bit of his life, if I could let go of that, because he keeps proving to me like, yeah, I don't need you, Mom. That is the thing I am actively working on letting go. And it would just mean I would have a lot more mental space and could really focus on like, what else do I want to do? And that's the moment I'm in right now.
I love that. Yeah, I know. We had conversations about that. I cannot imagine. And yeah, I'll have to do that twice. So not looking forward to it.
Yes, twice.
Jen, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I know, overall people get the fact that they need to have the right message to reach the right client. But I think most of us, then that's where it stops. Like we don't know where to start. We don't know where to go. We don't know. Yeah, it's just overwhelming. So I'm so excited that you created this service, that I know how good it is because I went through it myself, and that everybody should be taking advantage of it. So,
well, I have a little coupon code for your client, for your listeners, if they
love that,
because I find the people who are ready, like I have a DIY thing. You can go to jenliddy.com/quiz, and there's like you can do a DIY with learning the 3 archetypes and what's your problem. There's a private podcast. You could do that if you're a DIYer. But people who are listening to your podcast are not DIYers. They're ready to solve the problem and they want it without overwhelm. And that's what the Message Fix RX does. So if you go to jenliddy.com/fix and you like what you see there and you want to buy that service, you can get $100 off using the code NATA, N-A-T-A. And there's no end date on it. So if you're listening to this next year, go check it out, because I'm not putting an expiration date on it, because that's how much I believe that people need this not overwhelming laser focus, fix the damn thing, go throw it into your own clod, and then you'll be set for, the next year.
I love that. That's so kind of you. Thank you so much. We're going to make sure that we put everything in the show notes for you guys. And I appreciate you sharing all your wisdom with everybody. We're so glad that you stop spending your brilliance on those romantic essays and finally started helping us make some more money and talk to the right people. So thank you for doing that. And thanks for spending the time with me.
Thank you. It was really fun. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nata Salvatore, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.